Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to begin today's special board meeting. Sergeant at Arms or designee has the front lobby been attended to ensure public access. Thank you. The school board meeting of November 4th, 2022 is now called to order. The time is 2 p.m. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public that the district's vision, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and its district's vision to be a world-class school system. Board member Kathleen Morgan will be participating and voting by phone for today's special meeting pursuant to Board Policy 1.11. Ms. Morgan, are you with us? Ms. Morgan, are you with us? Ms. Roman, can you just make sure to reach out to her to make sure that she gets on with us, please? And then just let us know that she's on when she does. Thank you. Okay, today's agenda includes public comment, 1 item under superintendent's recommendation, and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we accept the agenda as stated.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli. Okay, and please record your vote. And Ms. Roman, is it set up to? I don't think it is.
Mine's not coming.
Yeah, mine wasn't up either. Oh, you have to go back out and come back in maybe.
It just took a minute.
Okay, 6-0 motion passes with Ms. Morgan not present to vote. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Hurricane Ian Recovery Community Update. Dr. Bernier, can you please provide an update regarding the Hurricane Ian and its aftermath, and also could you please also give an update on the hoaxing that has been taking place? Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, members of the community, thank you very much. I'll start with that second question before getting into the PowerPoint. It was a Hurricane Ian update, specifically around Hector A, Capparetta Elementary School. Yesterday afternoon, we received word that a internet 911 call had been made to local police at Cape Coral, saying that there were students who had been shot in a chemistry lab at Mariner High School. That immediately scrambled the police department of Cape Coral to Mariner, at the same time making a phone call to their SRO, radio call to their SRO, who immediately put the school on lockdown with the assistant principal. The principal of the building was in this building attending a principal's meeting. He got the information. We got him back to the school building as quickly as we possibly could. This is another one of those hoaxes. This is an internet-based call. The same is true of the South Fort Myers call. When South Fort Myers happened that Friday, there was a school on the East Coast impacted by the same call. Monday, it was in Denver. Yesterday, this call was in our school building at related to Mariner. Then on top of it, there were other school districts across the country who suffered the same exact phone call with details specific enough to scramble the police to those particular locations. We are pleased when we don't have an active shooter. What is disturbing and difficult is what transpires for our young people and what transpires for the staff, because they don't know that they're safe. All they know is that they're being locked down and police officers are on campus. The communication from Cape Coral was amazingly effective. I talked to Chief Sizemore. He was fabulous in his response and ability to stay in communication with us, specifically through Dave Newland. We were able to use our videos and our safety and security area to watch in real time what was transpiring so that we could be made aware, and then we were starting to form plans as to what we were going to enact next, whether we were going to go to the site or whether we were going to find out that it was indeed a hoax. I'm so proud of the Cape Coral Police Department, like the Sheriff's Department at South Fort Myers. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They went out, they went into the building, and they went to work. What I feel badly about is the trauma that our young people and our teachers go through. I will be reaching out, and we will be setting up a after-action review on this one as we did with the other. We will talk about lessons learned, what we need to do better, what our team could do better, what the police may want to improve about their response. But one of the things that we're going to put all the police chiefs and the Sheriff's Department on notice about is we would like to convene them together. And we'd like to talk a little bit about hoaxing and what we can do. Not that we would change anything about how we respond. We can't change the response of a police department over a 911 call. They have to go do what they do. But we've got to find a way across this country, and specifically in the state of Florida, to find a way to find these individuals or this individual who is doing this. It's so disruptive to the learning process, and it steals from our students and our teachers and our support professionals one more avenue of believing that they're safe. And it steals it from their parents as well, and their grandparents. So we've got to do something. I don't know what that is. I don't know what we can do. These are internet calls. In a conversation with an FBI agent that I know personally, if this was a cell phone or a landline, we would know where that person is. They would have them by now. But because the internet is full of IP addresses and you can bounce them from one IP address to another, and they're never quite on the same IP long enough to catch them, then it appears that law enforcement is struggling. But I do trust that there's technology and the ability of our local sheriff's office with their equipment, and certainly our federal organizations, to find these individuals, because I'm sure there are things that as the public, just like we don't report all of our safety precautions for our children, we don't know all the tools that are available in law enforcement from local all the way to the national level that could help find these individuals. So to our families, I want them to know that the students were never in any danger of an active shooter. The staff and faculty were never in any danger, but we want to be sure that the families understand that we know and saw in real time yesterday the stress and the trauma of our faculty and our staff and our students through this process. There were teams out there today to help students. We will continue to support students and faculty and staff related to this. And I just want to say again, thank you very much to the Cape Coral Police Department. Thank you to the administration and the teachers of Mariner. Thank you to the parents who were in the parent pickup loop, who were told to get back in their cars and wait and not get out. There was a great spirit of cooperation in very tense moments, and we are going to try to find a way to get to the bottom of how these things are occurring. Other superintendents are calling. I've called Bill Montford today, had a conversation with him about a number of different things, and saw what we could do when we have our meeting with FADS the last week in November, when the board will be at the Florida School Boards Association. We want that to be a topic of conversation with state law enforcement so that we can get to the bottom of why these things are occurring. I'll pause there in case there's additional questions or other items you want me to clarify for the public related to the hoaxing.
Thank you. Does anybody have, Ms. Gittens?
Just listening to your response just now, something came to mind. You mentioned support for our students and teachers and staff, and watching the anguish on the faces of the parents. Perhaps we should look at some type of a support for parents if they were, some of them, for example, were just saying they just don't know what to do and they were distraught. And then we expect them to go home and to take care of their children. and some of them are needing that voice of support. So maybe there should or could be, if there's not already, some type of a line or number that they can call, or even if they can call the counselor at the school or the team that goes. I'm just thinking they need some support too, and they may not reach out for it, but at least if they know that it's there, that someone they can talk to. What do you say to your children?
Ms. Gittens, I think that's a great point. We can certainly work with our counseling staff here at the district level to get parents' talking points, but I would encourage all parents to check their own private insurance related to employee assistance programs from their employers as well in the meantime, so that if they need help and assistance in talking to a licensed mental health professional or someone, that they would have that access potentially through their insurance. But I also agree with you, we should look to see what we can do to help support them. Right now, our resources, though, however, are going to be focused on our children, our staff, and our students.
I understand that, and maybe it's working with other agencies or organizations in the county or something to get that out, because we all know that there is a stigma about mental health, and especially in minority communities, and we're always trying to overcome that. But the knowledge and ability and understanding of calling EAP is to some people acknowledging I have a problem, I have a mental issue, and it's not. So what I'm saying, maybe it's bigger than here, to bring that to the community to say, here's an example of how adults need help as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes, so I just want to, in regard to yesterday's situation, I do want to mention that the Cape Coral Police Department has a victims advocates team, and that the local media also were giving advice to parents for local places they could go around the county for mental health support.
And if I may, Madam Chair, maybe we can, double up on that and make sure we have that out on our website and the school sites as well, just so they know and have that access. Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, because I was going to absolutely state that, because I did hear that as well. And I did go by Mariner prior to coming here today, and it was quite, sad. It was really sad. And when they speak about the experience, it's a lot for people to go through. So having all that ability to find people to speak to, I think that's a very good idea. And thank you for that, Ms. Gittens and Ms. Fisher. Ms. Vaughn?
Yeah, when a school district like us, and in this climate, when we have two of these incidents within a very short period of time, there are always people out there in the community that maybe listen with not even one ear, maybe a half ear, or, that's all they see. But as Dr. Bernier said, we will have a debriefing on this incident. We've had a debriefing on the incident at South Fort Myers High School. And I can tell you, as a former teacher, as a grandparent of a child that goes to school, high school in Cape Coral, that I feel very confident with the plans that we have as a school district, that, people in the schools are more knowledgeable this year, I think, than they've ever been in the past in terms of knowing what to do. I'm confident, as Dr. Bernier said, that the Cape Coral Police responded exactly the way they should have responded, as did our Sheriff's Department. And I just want to put it out there that if any of you see any of the trolls out there on the internet saying, oh, what's wrong with this school district? We're having all these, as Dr. Bernier said, it's not a problem unique to, well, problem is such an understatement, but it's not something that's unique to us as a school district. It's some sick, twisted, I'm going to guess a group of people, most likely even in another country, doing this for God knows what reason. And, don't even begin to compare the things that came out after months with, for instance, Uvalde, where there were lots and lots of mistakes and missteps. So I just want to reiterate, we have no control over these sick people that do this, and it is in no way, shape, or form any kind of reflection, bad reflection on this district or the response of our local law enforcement. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Patrica?
I just want to express my appreciation for the communication that occurred yesterday. I felt that it was much more timely than it was with the South incident, neither of which was your fault. I understand that, you're working more closely with the Sheriff's Department for communication, but the communication went out to families, and then at the end of the day, when you made the call, it was your recorded voice speaking to parents about the incident instead of some computer-generated voice. It was important for families to hear from you. So I just appreciated the change in communication in this and encourage you to do that going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Patrica. And I think we all agree with that. Ms. Giovanelli?
Actually, I was going to, that was something I was going to speak on as well, because as we received the information, I think it was actually happening at the same, it was simultaneous, it was going on. And I even had calls from the parents of students, literally at the same time. And I'm like, whoa, 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 So, and then I already knew that it was the swatting, and so I explained that to them, so thank you. I just wanted to say it was simultaneous. It was going on at the exact same time. And all cleared up in time for kids to go home too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. I just thought that was really important to get that out there today.
Madam Chair.
And that way, now we can move on to the
We can.
Hector.
We can move on to the Hurricane Ian update regarding Hector A. Capparetta Elementary School. This particular update will be very specific to this location. Hector Albert Capparetta Jr. Was a United States Marine who received the Medal of Honor for his actions at the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir during the Korean War. In November of 1950, Private First Class Capparetta single-handedly held off a regimental-strength enemy and saved wounded Marines by hurling live grenades that landed in their midst at the cost of serious personal injury. Officials with the State Veterans Affairs and the Medal of Honor Society lobbied the school district of Lee County to name the school for Hector Capparetta, who lived most of his life in New Jersey before moving to Venice in 1988. I wanted you to get a little background as to who this individual was before we just started talking about a school building. The agenda today is to give you a little bit of background as to how Hector Capparetta came into existence beyond what I just read about, a little biography, looking at the assessments and the damage that's been associated with this building, what the current status is, and what the current proposal is. So the background for this particular school building as it currently, as it stood prior to the hurricane, was there was a need for staging schools across the district in the mid-2000s due to rapid student growth. Identified locations were created in each zone, east, south, and west. The west zone property became what is now known as the current Hector A. Capparetta site. The district purchased a prefabricated modular concept design in order to build it quickly and efficiently, and the campus became permanent during a funding shortfall. All three locations in the east, south, and west did actually become permanent schools. Hector A. Capparetta was one, Ramsey Page was another, and G. Weaver Hips was the other. And you'll know that Ramsey Page and G. Weaver Hips were previous department, Kmart, other types of stores. So they were originally staging schools, but based upon growth and the ability to turn empty property into effective school sites, that's what this district did. I think that's important for the community to know how how all those schools came into being, but specifically Hector. In terms of assessment and damage, we're looking at significant damage. I appreciate this board as well as our elected officials touring Hector. There are extensive roof issues. This roof went off very early in the storm. It was removed. That created water infiltration into the campus. It rained so much it soaked it from the first floor from the second floor into the first. And now the building interior must be completely removed prior to decision regarding its future. So we are still in the process of stripping down Hector A, Capparetta, and making sure that we're doing that. The current status of the school building, and we provided a small map so that people could understand, there's a group of 725 students, 750 before the storm, that now is split between 2 elementary schools. This was not, I shared today on a phone call with the community, you would never find this model in an educational manual about how to do school. This is not something that you would see as a proposed model for a superintendent. However, with 725 students and no room to fit them into any one building, we split them K-2 in Hancock Creek, which you'll see on the upper right-hand side with an arrow pointing at it. You'll see Hector Capparetta in the center of the Cape Coral in this map. And then finally, 3 through 5 are headed to Pelican Elementary School. So as we know, we have some parents who have a first grader and a fourth grader. That gives them 2 buildings with which to go to. And those parents have been great about getting our students to the Hancock Creek and the Pelican Elementary school bus stops. They're using current stops in order to get their children to these schools. Clearly, there are divisions of the administration and the staff. Hector's principal is at one location, though he goes back and forth between them each and every day. His assistant principal is at another location. There are logistical considerations for parent and pickup drop-off and transportation logistics as well. But mostly, I think we have to really focus on the fact that this is not a conducive educational environment. And I want to make it clear to the entire community, the board knows this, the state is not going to make any changes to its expected testing schedule or the accountability system for the state. They're not going to make an exception for Lee County. So we have a responsibility, hopefully, to get these young people back into a school building with their principals so they can begin to move forward in preparation, not only for their skills and wonderful abilities as young people and continue to grow, but also to work related to the testing that we know is coming. So our current proposal is to build a temporary campus for Hector A. Capparetta on the adjacent Cape Coral Technical College property. In this particular photograph, you'll see Cape at the top, Cape Tech at the top. It's darker and grayer in color, and you'll see a small loop behind the building that's on the far left-hand side, and you'll see empty space. The proposal would bring that is where we intend, if you would approve the recommendation today, that's where we would intend to build this temporary campus. There is infrastructure here because while the modular building, which is the lighter gray area parking lot just below the Cape, just south of it, truly in direction, when that particular building was being built, there was a swing campus that was built on this location behind the Cape in the past. So the infrastructure for water, the infrastructure for plumbing, wastewater, electricity, the runs and the raceways are there, so they can be utilized. The proposal would bring Capparetta administration students back together on one site. Negotiations, I want to make sure that you understand, continue to operate almost until this board meeting. I thank both the board and the community for your patience. This is not an easy thing to get done, but we have a contract that both parties can agree to, and we do need the board to lend its support potentially to this decision, and the recommendation was we would do that. Future considerations would follow any decision made today. If we were to not approve and you did not follow the recommendation, we would begin to administrate differently this afternoon. If you approve this, we would begin to administrate differently moving forward, the first step being building the campus, and then starting to talk and bringing back to you the options for what we can do with the building or the location, depending on what the final damage estimates and other things are. That is really my discussion, my comments, and I'm open to board discussion regarding this proposal. I will tell you, not only is Mr. Ramirez, Chief of Staff, available, but we have members of our construction team and we have members of our budget and finance team that are prepared to help handle your questions as well, and they'll probably join Mr. Ramirez while you're asking your first set of questions. Madam Chair, that is the update regarding Hector Capparetta.
Thank you. So, Ms. Gittens, please.
Okay, couple of questions on slide number 7. It just looks like such a small area, actually. How many, first of all, what is the current enrollment for Hector Capparetta? And how does that equate into how many portables they're going to need? Do we know that yet, or is that too?
In terms of the number of students that are enrolled in the PowerPoint presentation, we use the number 725. They are still working to find some of the other students have not, and find out what happened to some of the other students. We know some of those students have left town and are not planning to come back, but they are still looking for some other, their young people as well, trying to continue to make connections. We believe that, as we said at the last board meeting, as we move into testing the mandatory attendance systems next week in preparation for the 28th to get back to mandatory, we'll have more responses. In terms of the number of portables, I will turn that over to members of my team to make sure you get the most accurate and updated information.
Did you want to go ahead and one of you answer that question?
I have one more.
Jeff Wagner for the record. There are currently 36 classroom portables, a dining hall, full kitchen, clinic, and administration portables that have been located on that site. Obviously, it's a very tight fit, but it has been ran through our planning department to ensure that it will accommodate 725 students that are currently enrolled.
So we've got permitted to put that many there? Or do we have to, is it a permit type issue?
We've been working closely with Cape Coral, and they have indicated that they will allow us to put those portables on that campus for that need under the governor's emergency order.
And normally, a large part of affording to do portables is the setup. And I know you're saying that there's infrastructure, there's the water there, and I think it's a pretty high amount to set up one portable. Since we already have the infrastructure there, you mentioned water and all that, electrical as well, and is that going to give us any ability to do it any cheaper than, and what I'm talking about is when we've talked about portables in the past, if you set up a portable, there's a fee to set it up, which includes electric and water and all of that type of thing. Since we have that there already, is it going to cost us less to do it?
I'll let the team speak to the costs related to the potential of what's underground and what we can utilize and what we cannot. I know we've had people out looking at that. But I think the other thing for people to understand is that this is not a portable campus that we will own. We are not going to get into the business of, I just think it's important for the public to hear that we're not going to be buying these portables. These portables we set in place and set up, and we'll be, in a sense, renting them, leasing them from this company until such time as we no longer need it, when we've made as a decision as a board, when you as a board have made a decision related to what we're going to do permanently for Hector Capparetta. I'll turn it back to our team regarding if there are any cost savings involved.
I will note that the primary benefit of using the site that was previously used as a portable campus is speed. We are asking the contractor to accomplish this project in a very abbreviated schedule. If we did not have a site that had these existing features, we would not be able to do it in that time frame. The second advantage of using this particular site is its proximity to the Capparetta building. So it provides a similar experience as far as distance from home and things of that nature for the student body. The prices reflected in the proposal do take into account supply chain issues that are being experienced, that were being experienced before the hurricane, takes into account post-hurricane demand. Obviously, lots of construction is happening here. These temporary facilities are in high demand, so we are paying a premium for that. Finally, it takes into account an extremely abbreviated schedule. So your school district just recently built or is in the process of building a temporary campus in Franklin Park. process took over 6 months is my understanding. We're asking for this to be done in a time period of 1 month. So all of those factors lead to the prices that are in the contract.
Right, and I understand the shortage of ability to get portables and all that, but if, in my one-on-one, Superintendent, you did mention about the fact that Cotton is able to supply us with some of those. Can we, talk about that?
The contractual agreement with the vendor does create a relationship with them where they would be responsible for coming up with those items. I think I would also hearken back to that Friday where we all came in for one-on-ones, and we had an opportunity to talk with each other that way, one-on-one, and we discussed the fact that at that time we were considering doing this under the emergency powers. I decided that in order to cross our T's and dot our I's, we would work through a more normal process and allow the board to make the decision. The other reason for that was we were under the belief at that point that we could potentially be placing us at risk regarding reimbursement, and it was prudent to do this way so that it could be done in a more prudent manner and make it more eligible for FEMA reimbursement. I will share with you that the FEMA reimbursement line from right now is still a really good, solid maybe. If FEMA is not saying no, they're not saying yes, we'll have to submit after this is done and see what occurs. I'll defer back to the team for any additional information.
Staff has worked extensively with the proposed vendor and reviewed their plan of attack. We do believe that they have the capacity to deliver on the contractual terms, which requires the campus to be ready for occupancy in a month's time.
Okay.
Vetted that. We have worked with them to connect them with vendors that we've used in the past that would maybe help that process. So we are confident that the plan that they've brought to the table is executable.
Okay, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm against it. I am for it all the way. Like I said previously, these were just a few questions that I did have. And my final thing is on slide 5, if we're going to share this with the public after this meeting, I believe there should be on that last bullet, building interior must be completely removed prior to decision, just before you put it out to the public, because someone like our English teacher here, Ms. Vaughn, is going to catch you on it.
I already caught it.
Appreciate
Just
that.
teasing. I knew she caught it already. Thank you so much, and thank you for the quick and swift manner of getting this done and helping us to get kids back to whatever 2022 new normal will be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Fisher, did you have your hand up?
I did. I got some of my questions answered while Ms. Gittens continued, but I do want to say that I had personally experienced the former portable location that was there for an elementary school and a high school, and it was a tight fit, but it was effective. And I think that a 1-month time frame is amazing. And I just want to really compliment you all on the work that you've been doing. I have faith in your expertise and that of the rest of our staff. And I think that bringing the students and staff and administration back together in one location will be good for them and for their families. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. And Ms. Vaughn, did you have your hand up?
I didn't. The first isn't, it just, I didn't catch, you said 36 classrooms, cafeteria, what were the other buildings? I didn't catch what you said.
Off the top of my head, there are 2 administration portables. There is a clinic portable, dining area, and we have a temporary kitchen, dishwashing trailer, and cold storage trailer. So essentially, full food service needs have been met. A dining room has been provided, appropriate classrooms, and the associated administration space to operate the school.
Okay, and what, you said we're going to be leasing these portables. Do we have information on, what year these portables were manufactured? I've seen some portables that look amazing, and then there's some that are older and kind of shabby. What do we know or about each of, especially, the classroom portables?
To be perfectly honest, we don't know anything. We haven't been provided with exactly what portables will be provided. However, my understanding is these portables are relatively new, meaning that there's been a high demand for portables, and anything that is available is new stock.
Okay, and I don't, never shopped for a portable classroom, so I don't know what's available out there, but I'm assuming, are there some that are larger that would be like for a kindergarten, or, so we don't really, do they have, especially for the primary grades, a bathroom in each? Or I would just be interested in, because these are going to be, and I am for this project, but I'm just curious what we're going to be getting for our money exactly. What the interiors of each of these look like, and is there a bathroom in each one of them? Is that kind of thing.
To help and possibly lend some assistance, there are very clear expectations related to building codes, children in portables, and SREF. We have to make sure we're compliant with that. Our contractor understands those rules and regulations. I would ensure that our team will watch very carefully and work very closely with this contractor to ensure what we're being provided is up to a standard, because I've said with the community today, our goal is for an effective educational environment that is also safe. Specifically to bathrooms and portables and other things, I believe Mr. Wagner potentially has that answer, but
Yeah, so portables come in a variety of different shapes and sizes.
Right. And basically that's what I was asking. What are we getting for?
I'll try to answer the question as
Okay.
completely as possible. We will receive 36 24 by 36 foot classroom portables with restrooms. So in the technical terminology of that is a wet portable versus a dry portable. Wet meaning that water is supplied, so all classrooms will have restrooms. We will receive 3 12 by 36 modular restroom facilities. We will receive 1 48 by 60 modular office space to utilize as a cafeteria. So we wanted to make sure that we had enough capacity to accommodate lunch in the way that it was previously done in the former building. We will receive 3 24 by 60 modular office spaces to be utilized as admin and clinic space. So we will have a clinic, or from where I'm from, we call them a nurse's office, and the administrative space. We will receive 1 53 foot by 8.5 foot temporary kitchen. So this is essentially to allow us to serve hot food at that location. We will receive 1 53 by 8.5 foot cold prep trailer. So these look a little bit different than what you're typically used to seeing in a portable. These are tractor trailers that have been modified for these purposes. And typically you see in things like oil-filled man camps, right? These are made to be deployed in a very rapid nature. We will also receive a 148 by 8.5 foot dishwasher trailer, so that will supplement the food service prep. So the team has worked extraordinarily hard in the last 2 weeks to clearly define a scope of work that provides us what is as close as possible to what was provided at Franklin Park for our students at Hector A. Capparetta.
Okay, thank you. Those were the kinds of things I was curious about. And one other thing, is there, who is it that plots out where, since it is a tight fit, that plots out where each of these is going to go? And obviously there needs to be like a sidewalk and the overhangs, we're going to have the covers and that sort of thing. And what about the fencing?
Yes, so I'll try to answer those questions in reverse order since I remember the last thing you asked first.
Okay, okay.
There will be a perimeter fence.
Okay.
That segregates the Hector A Capparetta campus from Coral Tech.
But is that a separate offense, a separate?
So the new portable
Amount?
campus will be separated from the existing Cape Coral Tech, so we
But
will
is the
have to put
fence included with?
Yes, it's
the
included as
price?
part of this
Okay,
price.
everything, basically.
The site plan was developed with collaboration between our internal planning department, a continuing architect that we use on a regular basis, BSSW, and the vendor. So that's incorporated in their proposal, what the layout will be. It will have a raised and covered walkway similar to what we have at other portable campuses. So the desire here is to provide as close as possible, given the time constraints, what we would do in any other situation where we needed a temporary campus.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Patrica?
Yes. So the memo, the exigent circumstances memo, may I assume that was, through the chair, may I assume that was provided to us and written for the purpose of trying to maximize FEMA reimbursement likelihood?
Do you want to do that one, Kath?
Absolutely. We're trying to document as much as possible to maximize our FEMA reimbursement. Exactly.
The part of it that makes me really concerned is, I just got it. Well, ultimately, we don't know. We don't know whether we're going to get this money back from FEMA. Is there any sense that FEMA is going to provide reimbursement for anything that happened at Capparetta? Whether it be this or funding our next steps, whatever those next steps might be with this building?
All steps have been taken with all damaged sites through Imperium, through the other documents we've put up here. So for instance, this is probably some of the board members' first opportunity to do that 3D walkthrough that real estate agents use so well, where you can go into your home that you're thinking about buying and walk through the entire thing. Hector has been set up that same exact way. The reason for that is to demonstrate the damage that was done, to dot our I's and cross our T's. This contract proposal, I believe our legal counsel took the extra step of working with a construction attorney to have all these materials reviewed. We believe that we are putting forth the best proposal we can with all the right aspects to it in order to be qualified for reimbursement for this. We're doing the same thing in all of our damage cases. FEMA is an organization that gets to decide. I wish I could, I know what you're asking for. I wish I could be more specific, and if there's more from a team member that I have missed, please, by all means.
Pre-Bruno, I think, has something to add to that.
What I would like to add is to assure the board that we have our FEMA consultant who's there to help us maximize our reimbursement, Imperium. So we've worked very, very, very closely with Imperium, not just getting ready for what's going to happen at the end, but to set us up in the beginning to be able to document, get the pictures, do the everything that we need so that when it's time to be able to go for our reimbursement, we have the best chance possible. That's the only thing that we can assure you.
And Franklin Park, how much is it costing to the state of Franklin Park?
My understanding is approximately $7 million, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong.
And we own those portables, correct?
My understanding is the vast majority of them were, we previously owned, and that was the cost to relocate, and perhaps Scott Regenbacher can provide additional
Well, he's here in the,
And most of the portables, while Scott makes its way to the microphone, most of those portables came from the Lehigh Senior High portable field that was, they were stored out there specifically for the use for Franklin Park. So, Scott?
That is correct. The number was about $7 million when we had some design fee. The bulk of the portables at Franklin Parks were owned by us. They're in our inventory. There were about 4 to 6 that were leased that we moved that came from the old Lambs building at one point and back and forth over to behind Lehigh Senior. We moved the entire cluster over to the Franklin Park campus for a total of 37 portables.
And what are the number of students that are going to be housed there?
At Franklin Parks, about 450.
So it's a smaller site.
Much smaller.
I mean, in your professional estimate, may I ask this question? In your professional estimate, is a $13 million difference appropriate, given the differences between the two campuses? The differences I identify are, number one, twice the size, essentially. Number two, we don't own these portables. We have to pay to rent them. And number three, the speed with which we're expecting this project to be completed. Is a $13 million difference between the two?
You're paying a premium for a super escalated project schedule. There's a premium for that. Right now, portables are in short demand. We've got the state to allow us to use portables that were permitted in other states, similar to what the state of Florida did in the Panhandle for Michael. They're just not available, and this company has the resources to, at a premium, to gather all of these resources and materials to set this campus up in a 1-month period. There's a price you pay for that, just like trying to get a new car now, where you escalated. Used cars are now what new cars were costing. It's part of doing business if it's important to you to set up that campus and bring those families and students back together. That's not a good sign.
Sorry, we're not really working on ambiance here. Somebody will please fix that. Thank you.
Snapped his fingers and took care of it. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, Ms. Patrica?
Yes. The money makes me really, really, really uncomfortable. A couple other questions that aren't necessarily directly related to this decision, but questions that I feel need to be answered. Why are we gutting Capparetta if we don't know its future? So if Capparetta is going to be a total loss, we're putting money in there right now to gut it when it could just be a complete knockdown. So it feels like we're doubling our efforts. Does that make sense?
When the remediation began on Hector A. Capparetta, it was very clear to us from Imperium at the time that we needed to continue to remediate that building, or it would be subject to a FEMA disclosing to us that we were not doing the work, and therefore potentially we were letting the building fall apart in order to then worsen its condition. I know there's another building that we are not considering in this particular environment that it can't get any worse than it already is. So that's why, and we spoke with Fort Myers Beach Elementary School parents today as well, that's why you're not seeing a lot of remediation going on at Fort Myers Beach Elementary. Fort Myers Beach Elementary is a total loss. Everything there needs to be remediated, and the only needs to be reconstructed. Every wire, every air conditioning duct, every door jamb, every door, every piece of flooring, every Promethean board, everything. Because in a sense, Fort Myers Beach Elementary took a bath. The only reason why I say that or bring that up at all is because the situation at Hector is different. There is the ability potentially to remediate this building and reconstruct it from the inside and do that. We don't believe that we have that same situation in all of our sites. So there was specifically a recommendation from our FEMA consultant to say to us, you have to continue to work on remediating Hector. So number one, that we have the option for for the board to consider when we bring back what we want to do with Hector Capparetta. We want all options on the table for you when it comes to that particular building.
When can we get a reliable forecast of a decrease in sales tax revenue? Because that is going to obviously impact whatever decisions we make going forward, not just with this building, but with other buildings and prioritizing maintenance and all of that. I would assume we know what we lost in October.
I'm not prepared to answer that question particularly this evening. I'm sorry, I was not planning to get into the loss of our revenue. I know I know at the last board meeting, Dr. Desmore did provide us an update regarding both abatements and what we're going to potentially, what we could be losing on the side of our current tax rolls, as what were formerly homes or multi-million-dollar homes are now empty lots, or homes that are going to be torn down and potentially not reconstructed. So there will be a delay. As far as I know at this point, we do not have an cost estimate. I do have a meeting next week with our tax assessor. That was going to be a subject of our conversation.
That's it for now. Mr. Vanelli?
Okay, so I thought one of the reasons, and this is through the chair, through Dr. Bernier, I thought that one of the reasons that we slowed down too was to go through the procurement process to explore all opportunities. But now we're down to just one vendor, the out-of-state vendor that's been doing all the work presently at and remediation at all the schools, but it's between Cotton and I don't know the name of the other one. Cotton's the one I'm familiar with. There's another one, isn't there? There's two.
There is another vendor who did initially apply.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Susan Millay. Ms. Millay has been working the procurement process in this particular case. She's the one who's guided this through countless hours, countless conversations and phone calls. And I would say we started with you and I and all the board members individually having a conversation about this when I was asking for permission to do one more emergency order. We decided not to do that, and that's what's left us in the last 2 weeks. That's left us developing this particular proposal. But I'll turn it over to Susan for some of the details on how we work through some of our procurement procedures in order to get to this point.
Right, because this is the same proposal basically you told us in our 101. I don't think it's changed. The price is, it hasn't anyways.
It's a little different about how we arrived here. So I would like Susan Millay to have that conversation with you.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. In the past 4 weeks, we have looked at many options on how to procure a portable campus to meet our needs. In that process, we've worked with our legal department. We've worked very closely with Florida Department of Emergency Management's Chief Compliance Lead to talk through all the different procurement options. So we've looked at everything from RFQs, RFPs, ITNs, straight bids, piggybacking. We've turned each one of those over exhaustively. And we've also gone out and solicited from more than 30 vendors some basic questions. Would you be able to provide this many portables? If so, would you be able to provide it in a short timeline? So we had 2 responses that answered yes to both of those questions. So we met with each of those firms, and as a result learned that we had one firm that was able to provide the materials and also meet the timeline. It is the commitment they're making. And so we've arrived here after exhaustively overturning with outside counsel, FDEM, and actually we've also been coordinating with other school districts. Charlotte County to our north is in a similar position. So we've been going back and forth about how they're going to procure, how we're going to procure. We've exchanged vendor lists. And just communicating openly with everyone who has both a need and the ability to respond. And where we are today is that we have one vendor who's able to come forward and commit to meeting the needs of the district to reunite the Hector students.
Okay. One of the other questions that I had was, now, will all these portables be handicap accessible?
So
I hear that.
SREF is our guideline that we follow for construction, and that is a requirement to comply. A great opportunity that occurred is our construction leads went out to the Franklin Park campus with the vendor who's proposing to engage with us on this contract, and to see exactly what the outcome looks like, to tighten up as much as we could, all the little things that when you see an operational portable campus, it brings to light a few things. It significantly reduced our costs in some areas and increased in a couple, and so that's where we've landed.
What happens if we don't get Capparetta back up and we still are going to have to, we don't meet the contract deadline to be able to move them out back to Capparetta? Then what happens?
One of the great things is we have flexibility in our contract. So the contract as positioned has a 1-month minimum and a month-to-month lease afterwards for up to 3 years. So the board has some research and decision-making to do on how to proceed. And so the flexibility of the contract would allow, if the district decided, the building, structural engineers can confirm that we could rebuild Hector Capparetta, and if that's the direction the board took, then that timeline for renting the portable campus would probably be smaller than if we were having to do a total tear down and rebuild, because we know what our timelines are for building a school from scratch.
Right, and that is one of the reasons why I am concerned, because I've talked to some people, contractors in the community, and they said really Hector Capparetta's modular school was an experiment, and that everybody that I spoke to said it's not wise to fix it, that it should be a complete tear down and bring everything up to code and to date, and because otherwise we could experience that 100-year storm again sooner. Hopefully it is 100 years and I won't have to worry about it, but I'm thinking future, because I think it was a total experiment, that school, and that's why we don't have any more like it. And so when you know something's broken and you shouldn't fix it, should you? That's what I'm saying.
So, Dr. Bernier, can you answer?
It's a great statement or question. I think it bears for the public as well as for the board member for us to respond to that. I think right now, as I've talked to you before in emergency operation management, and I want you to understand that we are still meeting daily to go into emergency operations mode every single day. We're always working our current issue, but also always thinking about the next and what's coming down the road at us as well. So we've been working extensively on Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach Elementary, and Hector Capparetta, but I would ask people to recall that October 31st was just Monday. That opened both Lexington and Diplomat to teachers, and then the following day on November 1. Sometimes we can lose track of, that seems to me like that was a month ago today, but it was just this week. And we're thankful for that work. This is the first step for us to get Hector Capparetta's families and students and staff reunited in a school building. We then, agree with you, have to do the research on all of the different options that could be out there for what we do to create a permanent place for Hector A. Capparetta to exist. That could be where it is, that could be where it is with a new building, that could be in another location, and it could be, and we could probably come up with maybe 2 or 3 more options that have to be fully researched and costed out so that we can come back to you with what that will be. We are not there. That is something we are working on currently. We are already working on all different types of options, but we are not yet ready to come forward to you and say, here are the options. How would you like us to proceed? We're just not there yet. There's some really creative ideas in the mix, but I don't want to start announcing them today because we have to look at all the financial implications of what's at stake here.
Thank you. One more. So I think it's safe to say that the reason how we arrived at this vendor is because they can do it is quick and get everybody back together in place, right? I mean, that's the real reason.
The reason why this recommendation is before board, I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
The reason why this recommendation came from me to build this campus is we believe this particular vendor, after doing all the work to exhaust other and all possibilities, represents the best opportunity to build Hector A. Capparetta a campus within a very shortened timeframe.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and that's, I think that's what I was saying. I just wanted to say it again, I want to say it again, because I think it's important to know that we're trying to do our very best to get everybody back together and under one roof, so to say, even though it might be 36. So I think that is all my questions. I just am concerned, and I just want to make this statement that Cotton's doing a lot of the work, and we really cannot forget our local vendors, because it's really important that we're utilizing them. And I am concerned over that, because I've already had several come to me concerned. So, thank you.
Thank you. And then, and also, Dr. Bernier, we do not, who has the final say whether that school is built or not built? Is it the state that will dictate whether we will rebuild it or tear it down? And then two, we had the vendors open house today with 80+ people here to get jobs on everything that has taken place. I just wanted to make sure that that was not, that's mentioned as well.
Yes, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of work ahead for our local vendors. Again, as Ms. Millay said, she exhausted piggybacks, ITNs, looking at lots of different options where people could have stepped forward locally and say, we can do this. I think our local vendors, and I'm sure I will get a phone call if I'm wrong, I don't think our local vendors are prepared, nor do they have the inventory to do this in the time frame that we're asking it to be done in. As to the building itself, it will be our decision as a board. We will get more information. The structural engineers have made some recommendations about if Hector was going to be rebuilt where it currently stands, what we would have to do that work. We need to make sure we get our cost estimates right, and that we bring forward to you what that proposal would look like. If we believe also that if that building is not appropriate to be standing in a hurricane zone, we have to also say that out loud, and we want some clarification on that. If those particular things don't work out and the building's design is not appropriate for a coastal area, then we have to think about other options. We want to bring those options to you in a work session, hear your comments and discussion, be able to go back and forth. Then we'll be able to formulate a recommendation like this, bring it forward to you on a regularly scheduled agenda so that you can vote on that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morgan, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly, yes. Did you have any comments or questions, please?
Yeah, sure I do.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I want to thank you. This proposal is another example of how important it is to have highly qualified and experienced leadership at a time of an emergency. We've hired people who are the most capable of bringing a short-term solution to us. It seems to me that the board's decision is between spending the $20 million and between providing a suitable academic environment in which children can achieve. We have, and the short-term problem is different than the long-term problem. The long-term problem is the problem of what happens to Hector Capparetta. The short-term problem is, do we want to support Hector Capparetta students short-term in a way that potentially will cost us $20 million? That's really what we're talking about here. What it is getting those students into an environment in which they can be successful, worth the risk of the school district eventually not recovering this money. That's, to me, where we're at. We have not talked about the student side. Lizette sends me a note saying that Mr. Ramirez is also sitting there, and I saw I saw you, and I apologize for not acknowledging you also. But no, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so the question is, what do we buy for students with that $20 million? What do we buy for the school district with that $20 million? And are we willing to take that potentially loss? Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Morgan. That's the note that I had down here to say. I agree with you totally. If we look at this like, let's say if it was our home, our individual home, and we just went through this storm, and people are waiting to see if it's going to be totaled or what part of it, right? Then where do we go from here? So that's, from what I hear, still all up in the air. A lot of that is up in the air as to, are they going to, it's like having a car accident, are they going to total the car when you get a new one, or are you going to have to use a rental car until they fix yours? So we don't have that answer yet, is what I keep hearing. Am I correct with that? That we don't have that specific answer. And as Ms. Morgan said, the reason we're here today is to decide, in my opinion, do we spend money to reunite all of the grades and everybody from Hector Capparetta into one area? And how will that affect their academics, their learning? I mean, and the other piece that I was thinking about too, when you look at that map of where they're going to the two different schools now, and how does that affect transportation? Are we providing transportation that would go to one place now, providing more transportation to go to two places? So that's another thing. But our decision today is, do we need to, want to do that? And is it something that maybe we should hear from academic services? If it's, how is it really going to affect the students? Optimal? Yes, have something where we bring these kids all back together to what they're used to and what they know. Is that the decision we make right now? And I don't know, it's also up in the air because we don't know how much we'll need to fix or redo that building, or when or how. It's just a lot of balls in the air right now. So.
Ms. Vaughn?
I think Ms. Morgan did an excellent job in boiling it down to what we're doing here is either saying, yes, we are willing to spend $20 million for this and support the children and families of this community, but we also need to be thinking about the communities that are already in place in the two schools that, Hancock Creek and San Carlos. Schools have very specific climates and ways to do things. And I believe that, I think all of us just got an email that really showed this, in that a teacher, one of the displaced Hector Capparetta teacher said there is although there's a welcoming from the school, there's also this, well, it's our school and this is the way we do things, and this is, from lining up single file on one side of the hall, or, sometimes it may, to the average person that's not used to the way schools build their little internal rules, it might be, what, that's not a biggie, but it is, because the climate and the ownership of this is our school. And it's not just Hector right now that's having they don't have a particular school, but I would say the two other schools, there would be an issue of how to be warm and welcoming, and yet, okay, they're not us, they're separate. Personally, I would say spend the 20 million. The short term is very important, and yes, there is a difference besides size between the Franklin Park area of portables and this one, because in Franklin Park, they all know that this is temporary and that they're going to be in their newly renovated school. Hector Capparetta, there's not that knowledge, and so besides everything else that we've talked about, siblings at one school, another sibling at another school, it's this idea of where do we belong? What's going to happen? It's a, I don't know if you might even say fear of the future or concern about the future. I'm hoping, because I've seen ads on TV, that the state has reserves. I'm hoping, and I've talked about this before, our legislative delegation can, when the session resumes, say, look, this is our situation, this is what we need, and so who knows if there will be money coming from the state. We don't know what's going to come from FEMA, but we do know the facts of this. And out there in Lee County, again, I'm not going to be on the board, but I can tell you as a private citizen, I would accept paying more money in taxes for the benefit of our children and our community. And it may just come down to that. And as I said, I totally support spending this as a short term, continuing with our long-term ideas. As Dr. Bernier said, that the staff is already working on ideas, and then the next board will have some hard decisions to make on that. So that's my opinion on this.
Ms. Giovanelli, and then Ms. Gittens, I'm going to come back to you right after that, because I
just have a question on what she said, but.
Okay, let me go to Ms. Giovanelli, had her hand up.
And just to piggyback a little bit off of Ms. Vaughn, I think that the housing schools need to be a little more hospitable. So I think, and welcome these displaced people, just like our shelters did for a while. So I think that I would hope that will change as they get a little more comfortable. So, but I think this came up another time, and it's something that Ms. Morgan said that, and thank you, Ms. Morgan, because I think you did, in very few words, put the reason why we're here today. So I appreciate that. The sales tax revenue, I know this came up, but if FEMA doesn't pay for it, is that an option to come from our sales tax revenue? Did we explore that or get answers to that? I think Ms. Patrica brought this up before, and I don't recall the answer. Because at the end of the day, we do have to make the decision, and it will be important to know of our options.
It's a great question. We are looking at all of our available sources of dollars. We've asked our legal counsel and our legal team to review the sales tax referendum to ensure that we are compliant with what the voters of this community voted to do with that. I would be more comfortable if we were providing additional seats. That, to me, was the letter of the law behind the referendum. It was to deal with growth and building additional seats. There are some other avenues within the referendum's language that could potentially provide us that that wiggle room, but I would want our legal team to weigh in very specifically, because I think specifically with our sales tax dollars, this community was promised that that would build additional seats in our community, and this particular project does not represent that. There is the possibility if we were to build in the future different schools, then the sales tax money would be available to us. But right now, this project would be something that we would have, that the sales tax would not be something right now that I'm even considering to help pay for this project. I think we have to be very careful with our sales tax money. I'll let legal weigh in because they've been reviewing the referendum language.
We don't have a recommendation at this time. We're still researching. We've been working on other emergency projects, so.
Right, but I thought our sales tax was for maintenance as well, and I know this is beyond maintenance, but, I mean, then if we had to resurrect a new school, I think it would fall underneath that, but I'm not legal, so, and I'll just end here with that. Thank you for all your work on this, because I know it's important, and I know that we had to have a special meeting because it was urgent. And thank you for involving legal team and trying to address it, checking all the boxes and making sure that we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens.
So my question is, and the easiest way to put it is to go back to my car accident example. So they have, will pay for a rental car while they're deciding if we get a brand new car. And my question is, if that's the case with this, and we don't know what FEMA's going to pay, or we don't know what anyone else is going to pay, we're looking at the 20 million, like we're just paying that and it's out. We don't know yet if we would get part of that back. Is that not correct? So it's not just saying flat, we either spend the 20 million to get these kids back over here in this school, and we don't see that anymore.
We have done everything possible in the last 4 weeks to put this district in the best position for reimbursement.
Right.
That's what we've done.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So it's not fair, let's say, to make a blanket statement that if we do this, we're out $20 million. We may be out 10. We may not be out, 5. It just doesn't, we don't know. The car that was in the accident was a Kia, and, are we sitting there waiting for a BMW to show up on our, so we don't know how much. And I think with that in mind, it still boils down to that main question. Are we willing to pay, whether it's 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, to get these students and school family back into one location? And for how long? Because we don't know that either. So.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. And I think some of those questions have been answered several times with regards to the unknown of how much money would come back and being put in the best situation possible for us to get back possibly whatever we can do to make that happen. And Ms. Fisher, I'm going to come to you in 1 second. And then, well, go ahead, Ms. Fisher, please.
Well, I was just going to say, this is an emergency situation. There have been a lot of disruptions to our community. Families are displaced, they're out of their homes. And we have between 700 and 800 students and the staff who are disrupted, but they are also part of a disruption for 2 other schools. And how much are we spending anyway, for this whole thing with transportation and everything? I live in Cape Coral. The traffic is a nightmare. It took me an hour to get from Skyline Boulevard to Del Prado the other morning. So I think that further inconveniences can be avoided by doing this. And I think really that the $20 million, when we subtract what we're already spending, is a small price to pay to give that number of people a sense of normalcy, an opportunity to be together as a school family, to not disrupt two other schools, and to work on their social emotional wellness as well as their academic progress. So, hearing the community, I think that there would be a lot of support for that. I mean, and I think there already is. And again, I want to thank our superintendent and his staff for all the work that they've done, because it's really been, and I think I used this word maybe a week and a half ago, incredible in this short amount of time to make the progress that we've had in getting our kids back to school. And the community is grateful. So I would support the recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. I just want to recognize, too, that Dr. Kurtz is here today from Hector Capparetta. And my question would be, has he been included in conversations? Because I feel like this is his school, as well as the community school. And then, well, that's one question.
Well, thank you for recognizing him. I was going to do that in my closing comments. He, of his own accord, decided he wanted to be here today, and I'm glad he is here to hear the discussion and hear what's going on. The short answer is yes. He's been heavily involved with this community. Our first Zoom call had over 250 people from the Hector Capparetta community with us as we translated paragraph by paragraph as we spoke to that community, so they were sure they would understanding. Today's group is a little bit smaller because they pared down into more of an executive committee of a group of parents and stakeholders who now are going to be communicating out to all those parents. We had an additional meeting today. Mr. Kurtz would be also involved, Dr. Kurtz would also be involved as we look towards options for Hector A. Capparetta as moving forward. We'd also would want to include him in those conversations. So yes, he has been involved.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then I totally agree with Ms. Fisher when she said community support, because that Hector Capparetta family, you always hear from them. So there's a lot of conversation that's taken place. And I just wanted to, I know that I didn't see the letter that Ms. Vaughn had spoken about. I did see one that was from, they mentioned Hector Capparetta, but it was the Sanibel School that was having the some of the issues, I think. So I just wanted to, and I know that they were grateful that they were, the Hector Capparetta team, they were excited, well, not excited, they were happy that they were able to go in and to be able to see and retrieve whatever they could. So I thank you for that, and I'm absolutely in favor for this and bringing people together, because I can't tell you how many parents I've spoken to that have children in both spectrums of the world over there in the Cape. One is in North Fort Myers, really, and the other is way on the other side of the Cape. So for parents to have to try to balance that out right now is very, very hard. And then you add the buses on top of that, it becomes a nightmare. So I appreciate everybody's hard work and what they're doing and all the logistics and everything that's going into to all of this. But I think it is definitely better for the children, families, and staff all the way around. And Ms. Gittens?
I just have one more question. We are showing the 725 students. How many staff are affected by this division? So, do we know?
I was going to respond with all of them. All of the staff have been impacted by this division, but there's approximately 90.
The reason I was saying is looking at the 725, adding that the total number of people affected are not just the 725 students, but also the staff. And if we look at that larger number, it makes it a little more understandable as well. So.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. And Ms. Dupree-Bruno?
Madam Chair, we seem to be blending and going into the discussion on the recommended action. So I don't know if the board wants to move forward to have that formal motion made and the recommended action, and then have your discussion, because we're kind of blending everything together.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure if there was any questions that they were answered. Ms. Morgan, did you have?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to highlight Ms. Fisher's comment that this is not just about the students and faculty at Hector Capparetta. This is about students at all 3 schools. The expenditure is to provide a suitable learning environment for them as well. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. And if I may, I know we've gone around at least twice and some 3. If we can go ahead and move forward then to our next part, which would be, where am I? Oh, public comments.
And Madam Chair, the public comment and
It's
then...
public comments and then superintendent's recommendations after that.
And Madam Chair, there does not appear to be anyone signed up for public comment.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no public comments, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak that did not fill out a form? Seeing no one, we'll go on and move on to the next. So the next is the superintendent's recommendation. Dr. Bernier, please proceed.
After exploring many alternatives due to the emergency and exigent circumstances, the following recommendation is being brought forward. Approval of the contract and total project cost for a temporary portable campus for up to 2 years at Hector A. Capparetta Junior Elementary School in the amount of $20 million. After exploring many alternatives due to the emergency and exigent circumstances and per Florida Statute 255.0520(1)C or 255.05255, it is recommended to provide a temporary portable campus for all Hector A. Capparetta Junior students at the district-owned property adjacent to the campus, Cape Coral Technical College. It is recommended that Cotton Commercial USA, Inc. lead the design-build project for establishing a temporary portable campus with the support of BSSW Architects, Inc., a competitively awarded continuing contractor for the district. BSSW Architects has conducted a preliminary design of the site and engaged civil engineer Johnson Engineering for soil compression testing and other site preparation activities. Johnson Engineering is also an awarded contractor on the district's continuing contracts. Temporary portables will be leased through Cotton Commercial USA, Inc., while a permanent facility can be made available to our students. Independent of the design-build contract, GFA International, Inc., a building official awarded on the district's competitively awarded continuing contract, will provide inspections required for compliance with the building codes and regulations. It is recommended to approve the temporary portable campus at a total project cost not to exceed $20 million. Approval does authorize the superintendent to execute all related documents. Madam Chair.
Thank you. You have heard the superintendent's recommendation that after exploring many alternatives due to the emergency and the exigent circumstances as outlined in the agenda items, the board authorized a temporary portable campus for the 725 students of Hector A. Capparetta Junior Elementary School. He is asking that we approve the contract and the total project cost for temporary portable campus at Hector A. Capparetta Junior Elementary School in the amount of $20 million. This approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading off of my, I apologize. Is there a motion?
I'd like to move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for a temporary portable campus for Hector Capparetta Elementary in the amount of $20 million.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. And okay, motion by Ms. Fisher and seconded by Ms. Vaughn. And please record your vote.
At this time...
Oh, I have to apologize. My paperwork is all like...
And I do have a... May I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, what's on board docs is not what we're reading on the screen. Board docs is showing the 16 million.
No, board docs.
Gotta refresh.
I just pulled it up, and I went to the email and clicked on the one in email that said there has been an update. When I opened it, it still has the 16.
The
So-
update on board docs, under Board of Education, today's meeting, under Superintendent Recommendation Number 1, has a agenda item detail that has fiscal impact and dollar amount of $20 million. It's also included in the paragraphs associated with this.
Okay, maybe I am just not seeing it.
We'll try to get you there if staff is.
It's, and I went to the email that said it has been changed.
It's right here, and you click that on.
No, I just went out and did that twice.
Okay, so we will make sure that that is updated on board docs then?
It is.
It is.
Okay,
Okay, well,
Just click on D,
Well, I have that
superintendent's
too.
recommendation.
That's board docs.
Scroll down.
Perhaps if you navigate from the website instead of from the email, you might land on the current version.
I've done both. Let me try it again. And I'm still getting 16. So I don't know if there's something wrong with the system. I've done it both ways and I still get the 16 million.
There are, Madam Chair, if I may?
yes, if you, please, go ahead, because
There's
it is on here as well.
The item per se is the larger item. When you go to the attachments, what you're looking at is an approximate 1-year cost versus the cost for 2 years. If we were to leave Hector A. Capparetta in place for a 2-year period of time, that budget is not to exceed $20 million. There is another figure in some of the documentation that proposes the costs to build and then keep it for 1 full year.
Well, if I may, Madam Chair, this one just says temporary portable campus agenda item. And I don't know if there's a glitch in it or whatever, but I'm not able to pull up where it says 20 million.
Yeah, if you look on the public content, it is on here, and it does state $20 million. So we'll just have to look to find out why you're not seeing that, but it is absolutely, it's out here on this. So did you have it?
The attachment.
Yes.
It's
So do
the
you all have-
attachment
can I-
that says November 4th, temporary portable campus, correct?
No, you know I'm in it. That's the attachment.
Yeah, ladies, it is definitely on here. So is there a question pertaining to this, or?
Well, my point is, if I may, Madam Chair,
Please,
that if
so we
it's,
can move- I'm coming to you, Ms. Patricia,
if the
second.
public is looking at this and it is not correct, it needs to be.
Madam Chair, if I may, just to perhaps to clarify a little bit. So there were a lot of negotiations within the last 48 hours, all the way up through right before this particular board meeting. In those negotiations, we were able to go from $16 million for 1 year to $20 million for 2 years, based on changes and talking to the vendor and making recommendations to vendors to use, et cetera. So that is why there is a difference. On board docs, it does say the 20 million, but I do understand the confusion because it had the 60 million, whenever this was originally posted. But at this point, it is $20 million, and that is the reason why there is a change.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I have been out and in it twice. I am not, saying anything about the 20 million, that's fine. I am just saying for the sake of public, we need to make sure that everyone sees the same thing. I am not, confused about the 20 million, but we just need to make sure that it is.
Dr. Bernier, if I may.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
Go ahead.
So on board docs, the original item that was posted previously was $60 million. In an effort of transparency, that original item was included on this agenda to make sure the public saw the original and then the updated, so I just wanted to clarify that.
And where do we see the the update on board docs?
So Madam Chair, if I may, just for clarification, so we're not confused, the PDF of the November 4th with the $60 million is in the administrative content. So if you click on that, that's what you're going to pull.
Okay, so it is on board docs, so if we may continue on.
Ms. Fisher, I'm sorry.
So if there's any other questions regarding this or discussion, I will go ahead and move on. Ms. Patrica?
Yes, through the chair, Dr. Bernier, is there a process through the FEMA Public Assistance Program where we can be pre-approved for expenditures associated with an emergency like this?
Ms. Boulay or?
We're in the process of drafting a correspondence to the FMDE to see if we can get some type of pre-approval, but that's in a work in progress at this point.
So could we go through that process to determine what our actual expenses are going to be before we approve this? I mean, is that something that's been considered? Is that?
We've had multiple conversations with, Susan, if you want to jump in there. We've had multiple conversations with the compliance officer in FMDE to discuss what we were planning on doing. And we did get an email from him basically saying that what we're doing is pretty much in compliance. We just have not had the formal letters asking for the pre-approval. And Susan, if you want to add to that.
I'm not familiar with the pre-approval process from FEMA. I will tell you that on a Sunday, Principal Kurtz and I and the operations team met with both very senior leadership from FEMA and from FDEM at the Hector Capparetta site and walked it and have discussed options for go-forward options. And we've been in contact, they've put us in contact with the people who would help us to align our processes to be compliant, and we have requested anything in writing, any advice they could give us to help ensure the opportunity to recover costs. But there's not a preliminary pass-go card that we can get. I will also advise that insurance is another avenue that can reimburse the cost for the temporary portable campus.
All right, so, you know, I've heard a lot about this isn't just about the kids at Hector Capparetta, this is about the kids at Pelican and Hancock as well, and I agree, but it's also about the 103,000 other students in the district and the fact that we could be putting $20 million toward 725 students, thereby denying $20 million in capital available to the rest of the district. That's where I'm struggling. I'm really, really struggling with, when I look at the numbers, I looked at the numbers, $27,586 per student. And if you look at our history with Imperium, we were reimbursed for 2/3 of our Hurricane Irma expenses, right? I get that we're working with Imperium, we're doing everything we can to get them to get the maximum reimbursement that we can get, but we only got 2/3 of our hurricane expenses with Irma. So 2/3 of that brings it down to $9,100 per student. And I'm really struggling. I will approve this because I believe in the necessity of this for the kids and for that community, but I have to beg for efficient, outside the box, really innovative thinking in terms of what our next steps are with this school. That would be my concern. I don't know that I've ever been more uncomfortable in voting on something than I am on this right now. And it's not a lack of trust of staff, understand. I appreciate the work that you guys have put in. I know you've done everything you can. I do have to say, I'm in a position where I have a legal memorandum in front of me that I received late. I wasn't able to access it this morning. It kept saying there was some kind of a problem where I couldn't access it. And I have consumed it, but I haven't been able to beat it up. And I personally am in a position where I can't question the attorney about it because I'm not in a position where I can do that. So I'm in a difficult spot here. I appreciate staff. I appreciate your work. I know you're doing the best you can do. I just don't, I'm not confident in reimbursement and the impact that that has on all of our students across the district. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Preborno?
The memorandum was drafted by myself and a member of the Imperium team. If any board member would like to have a one-on-one with a member of the Imperium team and myself, we'd be more than happy to do so.
Thank you. Any other, Ms. Gittens?
I have to say that I agree with Ms. Patrica, that this is a very difficult decision. And I think I brought this up at another meeting when we were talking about the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan and what we would have to move over in order to do something over here. I understand what she's saying, because if one area of students is poised to get something that they need and have needed, and it's put aside because of this situation, it's a hard decision, and I understand where she's coming from with that, which is why I mentioned earlier too. I mean, what we're basically talking about is making people feel better about where they are, as opposed to possibly being uncomfortable but still being educated. And it sounds harsh to say that, but that's the harsh reality. Do we coach the other schools to make them be more, welcoming or whatever? I just, it's difficult. It's difficult to say, do you spend this amount of money to make someone feel more at home? I don't know.
Ms. Vaughn, please.
I'm going to say that it's impossible to put a figure of X number of dollars on the head of each child here. We have spent, for the benefit of children as needed over the years that I've been on the school board, including we have a lot of special needs students that we have spent an inordinate amount of money on because they need it and they are in our community. We have schools that, barrier island schools are so important to those communities. And yet, if you look at the barrier island schools, are they really, quote unquote, paying for themselves? Well, no, if you go ahead and in black and white and put a dollar figure on it. But yes, absolutely, because that commercial about what's priceless, this is priceless. It's priceless to maintain the climate and the community buy-in, and it's not just about making people feel better. It's about educating our students in the best way possible. And again, I'm going to reiterate that as an individual citizen of this county, not an elected official, which I will be very soon, I'm happy to pay more money, and I'll tell you, I'm happy to go to wherever it needs to be because there is money out there in this county. And there has been overall a reluctance to spend, a reluctance to say the T word. It's been in the history of this district that people who are going to be in the next election cycle don't want to vote for the T word tax. I've seen this in the past. When was the sales tax passed? The sales tax was passed, was put off until some people had already been re-elected, and then the heck with the people that were running. This is how it's been done. So, geez, I didn't know I would get to put one more little political statement out there, but we've got to stop that. We've got to stop looking at whose turn it is to run and what's going to be on the record and what talking point if you want to run again or if you want to run for a higher office. Put that aside. Are we politicians here or are we public servants? I've had people say to me, thank you for your service since I'm exiting. I'm sure Ms. Gittens and Ms. Fisher have had the same thing said. Again, are we public servants doing what's best for the children, or are we looking at our own futures? And the money is out there in this county, in this state, because it's been bragging points, both countywide and statewide, on reserve. And I wholeheartedly support this, and I'm hoping that we can call the vote pretty soon.
Thank you. I
going to
am
ask
going
to
to
call a vote.
see about calling the vote, because I know we've had multiple conversations already pertaining to this, this information. So if there's anything that we have not discussed or that has been mentioned prior as well, I would ask that. Go ahead, Ms. Gittens, please.
Okay, my question is, plain and simple,
Ms. Jordan,
we spend,
Ms. Jordan, Ms. Vaughn called for the vote. Is there a second to the call for the vote?
Second.
Oh,
There's
I'm
been
sorry.
a second.
Thank you for that. So it was called to the vote, seconded. All in favor of calling for the vote? Ms. Morgan?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries. So we will go ahead and record your vote, please. It was, again, it was motioned by Ms. Fisher and seconded by Ms. Vaughn. And if we will go ahead and record your vote on this, please. Ms. Freeman, I can't see it. Has everybody?
We have 6 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, and can you say who that is? Because it's not, I don't think people can see. So we have 6 yes
it's me.
and Ms. Gittens, no. Okay, thank you.
No, I did not say no, I said abstain. I had a question that I really needed to ask before I voted on this.
Okay,
You refused that to me, so.
Ms. Dupuy-Bruno, you cannot abstain if you're sitting here. Is that correct? You have to vote
You have to vote
yes or no?
yes or no.
Okay.
Thank you.
I vote yes, but
Thank you.
whatever.
So 7-0, motion carries. Okay,
Didn't we just vote on this?
so moving on to,
She put it back up here again. Do we have to vote again?
No, we would not. Do we need to, we don't need to vote again.
You just voted.
Yes. And I just had to have clarification from Ms. Gittens because she had to vote one way or another.
Okay, and may I make
Is that
a
correct?
comment, please?
It's a 7-0 vote.
So it's 7-0 vote, motion pass. Okay, so we are moving on to other business, which will be member comments. And I will go with, actually, I'm going to go with Ms. Morgan because, and then I'll come back to Ms. Fisher. Ms. Morgan?
Trying to figure out which button to press to unmute.
You're good. We hear you. Thank you.
I want to thank my colleagues. I thought that was a very, very good discussion. Very, well, very wide ranging, but I wanted to say thank you for all the questions raised, all the answers, and I appreciate you as my colleagues making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Ms. Fisher?
Thank you. Yes, I also appreciate the vote and my colleagues in doing what's right for kids. I have a little bit of good news. So there's a nonprofit called Brighter Bites, and they give 20 to 25 pounds of fresh fruits and vegetables every other week directly to families. They also teach how to use those fresh fruits and vegetables for more proper nutrition. So we have 4 elementary schools, which will be beginning delivery on November 7th, and they will be G. Weaver Hips Elementary, Harns Marsh, Lehigh Elementary, and Tice Elementary. And every student and staff member at those schools will receive 20 to 25 pounds of fresh produce every 2 weeks. If the program is successful in these pilot schools, they will add more schools for the next school year. So I just wanted to make that announcement because I think that that's a very good thing. I want to thank the members of the School Health Advisory, also the oh boy, the Healthy Living Collaboration, and Ms. Leisha Roy for their work in getting this opportunity for people at a time when a lot of them really need it. So, and again, thanks for the vote, and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, and thank you for sharing that good news. Ms. Giovanelli, please.
I'll be brief. Thank you, everyone, that I think we worked through this to get to the end and to what we needed to do. So I appreciate that too, and thank you, Ms. Morgan, for recognizing that and starting that conversation. I really appreciate that. We've spent more money on locks, or pretty close to it, at least half. So this affects a whole community in Cape Coral, 3 schools, and a disruption of a lot of, and if we can bring back any normalcy and stability, I think that's what doing this temporarily does. And again, it's temporary, but I think at the end of the day, it's what's best for children. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Y'all have a great weekend. And Jaws Claws, good luck tonight. And I'm going to Island Coast, so see anybody there that's going.
Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli. Ms. Patrica?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Thank you. The question that I wanted to get out and to say is what on our 5-year plan will be displaced by this $20 million? Not that like I said in the beginning, I understand it, I agree with it, but I do want to know, and I will be following closely whether I'm sitting here or sitting somewhere else, to see the movement of funding in the 5-year plan and how it might affect the long-needed, long-standing improvements and bills that I have been advocating for since I sat in this seat. That is my question. And I mean, I know, and I've said and explained over and over again my concern of overcrowding and needs in the East Zone, and I will say it until I can't say it anymore. And I understand the needs in other areas, but I have seen several times things that were planned to relieve the overcrowding and to relieve the needs in the East Zone, and all of a sudden they were there no more. And I cannot be silent on those things going away. I just can't. I am not saying that, you're going to cancel stuff that's planned in the East Zone, but trust me, I've been there and done that, and it's been done before. So I will be watching, and I will be vocal about it, whether I'm here or out there or wherever I am. It is necessary to look at the needs that we have ignored for so very long that need to be taken care of. And I will continue to say that. Like I said, this was a very difficult decision to make. And because we don't know if this 20 million was going to be taken out of what was going to be done to fix the school over here that has had a need for an awfully long time. I just want to get that out there. I hope that we can get all students back to some semblance of normal and all of that, and as soon as possible. It's just a lot of questions in how we're going about doing it. Thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Vaughn, please.
Yeah, let me start with kudos to all the staff members and also that moved quickly, moved with great speed, and quickly were able to look at the various options. I think, when we have plenty of time, the extra time, great. But sometimes that just doesn't happen, and you have to move swiftly. So kudos to all of you that were a part of that. We've been using a lot of analogies, so I'm going to use an analogy here in part to what Ms. Gittens just said. Let's say you have a family and in your family you have 4 children, and unfortunately one child is born with, let's say it's a birth defect or something that means that the family has to put in so much extra time and money. That doesn't mean that you totally neglect your other children. It doesn't mean that you don't love your other children. So the analogy goes to, not that Hector Capparetta has a birth defect, but at this point of our children, if you want to say the schools are our children, it's time to get some extra help. And I know that I'm not totally familiar with that community, but I'm sure that community will be extremely thankful that we've taken the time and money to do what is right there. And people like that tend to pay it forward. And little things like this, when you take the time to look at somebody, or in this case, a school that needs that extra help and money right now, I'm optimistic that there will be a pay it forward. And it's not going to be a pay it forward in terms of cash, but it'll be in other very important things. And what we as a board need to remember, and the board coming in needs to remember, yes, we have this whole section of our lives here in this district that are dedicated now to the schools that had the displacements and had, you know, the more catastrophic damage. But that doesn't mean we don't love our other schools, the other children. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to stay on that path. And, you know, those that we have made promises to, hopefully it can be within the same time frame, the 5-year plan. Maybe it has to be a 6th year. How many of us have had to put something aside? You know, you want this, that, or the other, or that big new house, but, you know, had a couple extra things that happened. So gonna have to put it off. So it's not a perfect analogy, but it's the best I could come up with off the top of my head. And I'm hoping for the best for this portable campus, generally speaking. I despise portable campuses, but you have to do what you have to do. And I'm also hoping that the new people that will be sitting up here on the dais remember that we have all those other children too that we have to take care of. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. And I just want to say thanks, Ms. Giovanelli, for mentioning, I think tonight is like rivalry night because you have Claws and Jaws and Mariner versus Island Coast and Fort Myers versus Dunbar. So tonight there's plenty of school spirit that will be out there. So if you do have an opportunity to make it to any of these games, I think that would be a great thing. And then also the Island Coast, as was mentioned this week earlier about their receiving their rings for the baseball. So that's another exciting, that's at Island Coast. And I would have loved to have heard what this means to Dr. Kurtz and his school, what this means going forward to them now that this has just taken place. Dr. Bernier, would he be able to do that? I'll give him my time to do that. Jump in protocol.
It's out of order.
It's out of order. I'm out of order.
We need to do, suggest that we have a change in protocol to allow that. I think it's a great idea.
I would share that you are going to probably hear very loud and clear from this. I serve at the pleasure of the board. If this is something the board wants and it's within the legal ramifications and the legal responsibilities of this board, you could, but I do say it sets a very interesting precedent, so.
Okay, I hear you. Dr. Kurtz, meet me afterwards. Thank you. Moving on to Ms. Dupree Bruno. Do you have any comments for today?
I don't, thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Bernier.
Briefly, just a reminder to this community that we are saddened by what transpired at Mariner High School yesterday. We have no control over hoax 911 calls. We are pleased with the response of the Cape Coral Police Department, but want our families and our students to know that we would never want their school experience to be like the one that transpired yesterday. Good luck to both they and Island Coast. Good luck, and please send my regards to the baseball team. For some of you, it was merely my first, if you will, bonding experience with many of you till, oh God, was that 2:30 in the morning? So those young men deserve all this credit. I hope even some of the ones that have gone away to careers will be back. It'll be very good to see some of our athletes return. I will be watching the Lions crew at the Bonita game very closely tonight, but it should be a lot of fun to see Claus versus Jaws, and excited about being there. I want to close, first of all, by thanking all of you. There are no easy decisions moving forward here. This is the first of many difficult ones that will come before this board, because we're going to have to make additional decisions regarding Fort Myers Beach Elementary. There's a number of things that have to occur, and we don't have all of the information to bring forward to you yet, but we will, And when we seat a new board, we will be as transparent as we can be, as I've been determined to be, I should say, with providing that information so that not only the board has the information, but that the public has it as well. I have to say this. There is a lot of leadership, prowess, talent, professionalism that was demonstrated in the last 2.5 weeks, and even longer than that if you go back to the original thoughts, to get this information to all of you by today. I apologized at the beginning. I will apologize again for the timeline. This was coming up to the very last minute on all of this, and as I told you last Tuesday night, there was no way we could have it ready by Tuesday, and we've worked diligently to get it ready for today. I'd like to recognize our legal team for its efforts. There have been calls at midnight, 1 a.m. There's been calls that I like to return, because when you call me at midnight, I like to call you around 4:30 or 5 when I get up. But that includes the procurement, budget, and finance divisions, our chief of staff, our constructions facilities people. Our procurement, our legal team, it has been a team project to get this to some sort of fruition. And I suspect that we will have, as I asked Michael to put together, Mr. Ramirez to put together, we will have a phone call with Hector Capparetta on Monday to let them know what is happening now. They were and probably are watching with very great interest, and I believe you will hear very clearly, and given the correct opportunity in the right location, I know Dr. Kurtz will tell all of you, I can tell you I know how happy he is that there's a light at the end of the tunnel right now for him in his school building, and it is truly the other side, at least for now. There's another tunnel that we'll have to enter into to talk about what the permanent locations look like for his school building and the other school buildings as well. But I can't thank this board enough. It is not an easy decision. Superintendent has to make a recommendation, then you have to choose whether to vote it up or down. And I respect the level of dialogue and what went on today, and hope we'll continue to dialogue about these particular issues and what the future looks like, so that we can continue to be as prepared as possible for the difficult decisions that lie ahead of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Next meeting on of the board on Tuesday, November 15th, there will be a pre-organization workshop at 10 a.m. On Wednesday, November 16th, there will be a board workshop at 12 p.m. On Tuesday, November 22nd, there will be a board action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no further business to come before this board, seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned and the time is 4:07. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and don't forget to vote.